This is everything I watched in March 2025. Hi, I'm Lydia, and if you're new here, I'm Film Probe, which basically means I watch a lot of movies and review them and share my thoughts with all of you lovely, lovely people. But before I get into the film reviews, here's a little update on everything I've been up to. I bought a new phone case that has Pedro on it. I spent a lot of time in the cinema. I practically live in the Everyman. I went to New York. I went on a very impromptu trip to go visit some of my bestest friends I hadn't seen in so long. I just loved being in New York. I felt so creative there, and like an industry that I want to be a part of just lives there. It breathes there. The film industry is everywhere, and that makes me so happy. I feel like I belong there. Maybe I should move to New York. I also got to try a black and white cookie for the first time, which kind of changed my life. I also went to Chicago, which meant I got to recreate a few Ferris Bueller moments. I also just want to say I reached 100,000 followers on Film Probe over on Instagram, which kind of blew my mind. I cannot believe that there's that many of you following my little journey of my film reviews and everything I love about cinema. So thank you for being a movie lover like me. It means the world to me. I also got sent some really cool clothes from Amber and Key, which is a company, if you love movies, I highly recommend you check out their merchandise. Also, one of my nails broke, which was a very sad day. And yeah, let's get into the real stuff. The reason you're here, the film reviews. Okay, let's get into the film reviews. I also just want to say I'm going to be using this Jellycat as my co star today, holding my mic. So thank you, Mr. Egg. He doesn't have a name yet. So in March, I watched a total of 20 movies, which I'm pretty happy with considering you guys watched the intro. I went away. I was busy. I was trying to keep myself busy in March. I'm pretty impressed. 20 films. That includes a few short films as well. But yeah, let's get right into it. So after the Oscars, I was kind of on a Sean Baker spree. Like I wanted to watch as many Sean Baker films as I could take. So I started the month with The Florida Project, which for anyone who doesn't know, came out in 2017, directed by Sean Baker, and I had never seen it before. I was embarrassed to admit that just then, but I'd never seen it. And people go on about the Florida Project like it's so beautiful and so moving, and Sean Baker's such a genius, and I'd never sat down to watch it. So I finally did, and I'm so glad I did because it was really, really, really beautiful. A very simplistic film. It's an independently made film, it's low budget. Essentially, the story is about a mother and a daughter struggling, living kind of on the edge of poverty, and they also live basically next door to Disneyland. So it's this idea of the beautiful, magical Disneyland is so close yet so far away. And I found that to be really profound and a huge metaphor for kind of the world that we live in. The film was gorgeous in terms of visuals. It was pink and blue and pastels and all these gorgeous colors. And it was really childlike. It was kind of honing in on that idea of we're watching a film about children, but it's also the cynical side of how crappy life can be and how many challenges it throws at you. It was kind of up and down emotionally. At times it was really sweet, but you always had this through line, this constant reminder that this is going to probably end quite sadly. And the mother was making some terrible decisions, but just with every intention to make her daughter's life better. And it was really poetic and sad, and it's what Sean Baker does best. He gives you a glimpse into reality, kind of a glimpse. I know it's still cinema, but he is so intelligent and clever at making his films seem like a real documentary. It feels like you're watching someone's real life, and that's all Sean Baker. I think the guy is really clever, and that's why I then went straight on and watched Tangerine, which came out in 2015 and is another one of his amazing movies. And it follows the story of this woman who realizes that her boyfriend has cheated on her. So her and her best friend go out to kind of get revenge on the boyfriend and the partner. It's really funny, but it's again because it's Sean Baker, it's shot in this really gritty, realistic way where you sometimes forget you're watching a movie and you're not watching a documentary. The actors were all incredible, just like the Florida Project. I didn't say this with the Florida Project, but all the actors were incredible in all of these films collectively. the cast are picked so well, and they're all able to just become these characters and again merge into this idea of it being a documentary. These people don't look like Hollywood stars, even though Willem Dafoe is in the Florida Project. They're able to, like chameleons, like blend into this whole different vibe that Sean Baker's got going on with his films, where they feel like real people. And I know they are real people, but do you know what I mean? Where they're not actors. They feel like real characters and real people. And I just, yeah, I think that really stuck out for me more so with Tangerine than it did with the Florida Project. Tangerine was made in 2015, but it also looked older. I don't know what Sean Baker did to it or what camera he shot this movie on, but it looks old. I'm actually going to look that up really quickly. I just found out it was shot on an iPhone. The whole thing was shot on an iPhone. No wonder it looks like that. That's so cool. I had no idea. That is really, really interesting. So the whole movie, Tangerine, was shot on an iPhone. That's really cool. It felt so intimate. And I get it now because it's just, I don't know, it's so cool. I really liked Sean Baker, but now I like him even more. Basically, I don't have much to say about Tangerine as a film. My biggest takeaway from this film was the casting choices, which, like I just said, felt so brilliantly handpicked for this film. Both movies were really interesting to watch. Like I said, gritty and dark at times, and sad at times, and funny at times. He has this really amazing way of storytelling where he really does take you on a journey. He really does take you through these characters' lives, and you feel like you know them. And by the end of the film, it's a bit deflating. You're like, oh, that was emotional and that was intense, and now it's over. But I think that's what he does so well. This is then, all of this is inspired by Anora, which you may or may not know. Anora was an incredible movie that came out last year, starring Mikey Madison, and it was directed by Sean Baker again, and he won an Oscar as best director for this. Well, the movie won a handful of Oscars. It won Best Picture, Mikey Madison won Best Actress, it won Best Editing. The film sweeped the Oscars, and it was a shock to me. But then I watched Anora, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. It wasn't my favorite to win, but I did find the film to be really interesting, and I loved Mikey Madison. I thought she was brilliant. And again, I after watching these two movies, I loved Sean Baker. I was on a Sean Baker high, and Honora just kind of was the cherry on top of these films I'd been watching. I felt like it was all of his filmography coming together to make Honora. It felt so much more high budget than his other films. I'm assuming it was, but it still felt really intimate. He was still able to keep that kind of fly on the wall vibe with his films, where as an audience member you really do feel like you're just like invading somebody's life. You're watching something you maybe shouldn't be watching. Basically, Honora is a unconventional modern Cinderella story. Honora, the main character, she is kind of swept off her feet by this young Russian guy who comes in and promises her everything she's ever wanted. But soon enough, we realize that this young Russian guy's family is incredibly powerful, and when the news gets back to Russia, they are not happy. And in the best turn phrase, shit hits the fan. Honora then, Honora was again gritty and raw and dark at times and funny at times, and it again had this amazing roller coaster of emotions like the other two films had. I would say this one's now my favorite Sean Baker film. I really, really liked Honora. I thought it was really interesting. And I just really liked Mikey Madison. I think she's really cool. And I think she brought this really interesting energy to the film where she's really vulnerable and innocent, but she's also powerful and strong. And I think I can't tell if I'm in love with her or if I'm jealous of her, if I want to be her. I don't know. But there's something about Mikey Madison that I'm just drawn to, and this film was really interesting. Very crude at times, I will say, if you're wanting to watch it and that isn't really your thing. There's quite a lot of nudity and strong adult themes. But aside from all of that stuff, well, that obviously adds to the narrative, but aside from all that, there is this core story there. I wish we got more about Honora. I wish we got more into her backstory. Ironically, the film's called Honora, and I felt like we didn't really know her very well. That was my biggest thing with this film, is that I wanted more of Honora. We only got to see her be truly vulnerable right at the end, and then the film stopped, and I was like, oh no, like I wanted more of that. So I understood why they didn't do that. I think it's because we wanted this idea that Honora feels like she has to be this person. She has to be strong. She has to be confident. She has to not show her emotions because of the industry she's in. But I just wanted more of an intimate relationship with her through the screen. I wanted to know more. Also, I forgot to say this, but for the Florida Project and Honora, I gave 4 out of 5 stars, and for Tangerine, I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Just so you know. The next movie I watched was called Close. This movie came out in 2022. It's a French film, and can I even start talking about Close without crying? I don't know. The story follows two young kids. They're both 13 years old. They're best friends. The guys are inseparable, and their relationship is adorable in every way. And basically, rumors start in school that they like each other, and children are pathetic. And the one friend starts to stop talking to the other friend. Basically, this wedge that's put in between their relationship is really harmful to the one character. And it's starting. Ugh. Everyone had spoken about this film on Film Probe. I'd seen so many people talking about Close, and I knew exactly what this film was, and I knew what the subject matter was, and I just could never bring myself to watch it because I'm so emotionally in tune and I'm so sensitive that I just knew it would upset me, and it did, obviously. So I finally watched it, and what I will say is that it was worth it. The film was beautifully shot. The moment I've shown with them running through the fields is just amazing. And the relationship between the two boys was so pure and so beautiful. And that's what made what happened hurt that much more. You felt like you truly loved these characters, and it shows you how adults deal with this kind of thing and children. And I found that relationship between the adults and the children in the story was really powerful. The film was just beautifully heartbreaking. If I had to describe it in a very few words, it would be beautifully heartbreaking. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So the next film I watched was called Nickel Boys, and this film was also in the circuit of all the award shows like Honora was, so that's how I knew what it was. And I hadn't sat down to watch it yet, and I'm really glad I did. The story of Nickel Boys is about a young man called Elwood who has all these dreams and hopes of going to college, and sadly it's all shattered when he's sent to a reformation school called Nickel Academy. The film is set in 1960s Florida, and when Elwood is in this school, this reformation school, he meets another boy called Turner, and the two kind of spark up this really nice friendship and relationship with one another. This film is filled with uh, hard, heavy themes to watch sometimes. Lots of racial violence and racism and themes of that nature. But what I found so incredible about this film was that it was shot entirely as a POV kind of film. So POV means point of view shots, and that's when the lens of the camera acts as the character's eyes, essentially. So you are moving around the scene as though you are that character, seeing what they see, experiencing what they experience. And I found that to be such a poetic metaphor for this film. It was making you step inside this person's shoes, live for a moment inside their shoes, because something like that is so hard to imagine, and you can't imagine it. But a film like this just gets you that little bit closer to understanding. And I found Nickel Boys to be really profound and moving in that way. And the ending was just horrible. um, but yeah, it had a lot of high and low moments. It had a lot of moments which really resonated with me and a lot of moments which were upsetting. But films that move you are the best films. Films where it ends and you think, whew, that was a lot, are sometimes the best films. And yeah, I loved it. I loved the originality and the choice to use the POV shot. I love a POV shot. I don't know why. There's something about it where I just think that's cool and I like it. So, yeah, this movie had that, and the story was brilliant, and the performances were brilliant. So, yeah, I highly recommend Nickel Boys. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next was one of my most highly anticipated films of this year. Okay, the whole of the year I was waiting for this film, and you can probably guess what it was. Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17, okay? Starring Robert Pattinson, the amazing sci-fi extravaganza that just had me in a chokehold for months, waiting for this movie to come out. And sadly, it just didn't quite deliver the way I thought it was going to. And I hate to admit that. Basically, the story of Mickey 17 sees Mickey, who is played by Robert Pattinson. He's this adorable, lovable, cute, dorky character. I love the way Robert Pattinson played him, just so unique. But essentially, Mickey is an expendable. He's a member of this crew on a ship that is moving across space to colonize a new ice planet, and they use Mickey to be expendable. Every time Mickey dies, they clone a new version of him, restore all of his memories, and effectively, Mickey is immortal. And we enter the story when we see all the Mickeys and we get to Mickey 17. So there's 17 versions of Mickey that have died during this mission. It's a really dark subject matter when you think about it. It's actually kind of horrible. This poor guy is just being murdered and killed over and over again, for the greater good. The way it was done, especially Robert Pattinson's performance, was really lighthearted and comedic. So it didn't feel too dark to watch. It didn't ever feel uncomfortable, or I don't know. There were moments where you were like, ugh, but most of the time it was very light-hearted. So this film, like I said, is from the beautifully lavish mind of Bong Joon-ho, who, if you don't know, is a director. He directed the incredible movie Parasite that came out a few years ago and won a load of Oscars, and that movie is one of the greatest. It's an incredible movie, and if you do one thing after watching this video, please go watch Parasite. But essentially, after the mass success of Parasite, I myself was expecting this movie to be just as incredible. And there was something about it where it was just missing some of the charisma. I wrote a really long, really extensive review over on Film Probe on Instagram and on my website. So if you'd like to read a proper review of Mickey 17, please go read my thoughts, because I can't get it all out of my brain right now. I think my biggest positive taking away from Mickey 17 was Robert Pattinson. He was brilliant, and he played two versions of himself. He played Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, which were both really distinct, different characters. But there was something really adorable about Mickey 17 that I just fell in love with instantly. This really unique kind of croaky voice that he had going on, and it was like one of his greatest performances. And I rate Robert Pattinson very highly, and I've seen all of his films. So this one, to say that means a lot, because he's brought us amazing performances. The cinematography of Mickey 17 was very much the director's color palette and style. We're used to him using these very muted tones and grays, and this kind of icy landscape that they go to on this planet really lended well to his aesthetic. So everything that was happening in Mickey 17, I was like, yeah, this makes sense that Bong Joon-ho would make this decision, that he would shoot it this way, that he would want it to look this way, because it's his aesthetic and it's very unique, and I do really like it. I think, honestly, my biggest problem with Mickey 17, and I'm saying it like I gave it a really awful rating, I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I still had a really good time with this film. I think I was expecting it to be funnier because the trailer was so good. And I find this happens a lot with Hollywood blockbusters, is their trailers are sometimes better than the film. So the trailer for Mickey 17 had this Dean Martin song over the top, and it was so good, and it was quick, and it was witty, and it was funny, and it was really charming. And then the film itself was quite bleak in comparison. And I think that's what irritated me, is the trailer made it seem like it was something that it wasn't. And if the trailer was just true to the film, you know what you're going in for and there's no chance of disappointment. But the trailer made it seem like it was something it was definitely not. Basically, overall, I'm a little disappointed with Mickey 17. I wasn't gutted. I didn't give it an awful score. I was just a little bit disappointed. I was expecting this film to be 5 out of 5 stars. I went with my family. I was bigging up the film before we went into the cinema. I was like, you guys are going to love this. It's going to be so good. I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best film of the year. And we all came out and we were like, oh, damn. Overall, some of the film is bleak and a bit somber, but it's also masterful too. And I found Mickey 17 was memorable, like to say the least. It's incredibly memorable film, and it's unlike anything else you'll ever see. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. So the next movie I watched was A24's We Live in Time, which came out last year, and it stars Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. And I, again, was protecting myself and chose not to watch this film straight away when it came out. I watched this one when I was on the plane on the way to New York, okay? And to say I had to go to the bathroom to cry in peace is embarrassing, but the truth, because this film was really sad. Again, I know when a film is going to upset me, and this one just did. But again, beautifully heartbreaking. This is a theme in March. I'm watching films which are beautifully tragic and upsetting, but they're the best films sometimes. This film is about a couple, Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh's characters, who are both incredible performers, and together I was so happy. Like the whole time they were just dynamic and had great chemistry and they were just bouncing off of each other. Those two as a pair, perfect acting, and they both brought so much to the roles. They're both such unique actors and so individual, but worked really well together. It was like a real couple. People have their own character, but when they're together they turn into this power team, and that's what I felt with these two. It was very believable. But essentially the movie sees these two meet in the most hilarious way. She hits him with her car, which is so funny, and they're in the hospital together and she's like, I hit you. And he's like, oh, okay. And they have this, really lovely relationship. They fall in love, they move in together. There's a lot of rockiness on this relationship path. They have arguments, they have problems, like, whatever. I'm just shortening it for you. They end up having a baby together, and then Florence Pugh's character finds out she has cancer. And that is obviously, as you can imagine, where everything in this film changes. And they try so hard, the characters, I mean, to keep it happy and light within the family and within their relationship. But there's this undertone of this looming thing that's taking over her, consuming her, and she tries so hard to fight it. And to the point at the end where she kind of is just accepting of it. The film is really powerful. I love the idea of just living in time right now. This is what we have, let's make the most of it. And yeah, the film, I just explained it to you. It's going to be sad. And I think films can impact you and move you when the story's great, but it's got to be a combination of everything. It's got to be, the actors have got to be great, the story's got to be great, and the execution has got to be great. And this film did all three of those things. It isn't necessarily a movie I'm going to be watching again because it was sad, but nonetheless, it was still a beautiful movie and I really enjoyed it. And I'm a very big fan of Andrew Garfield and a very big fan of Florence Pugh, and I thought they both knocked it out of the park. So this is a really moving, beautifully heartbreaking movie that I highly recommend, and I gave 4 out of 5 stars. So after the emotional turmoil of We Live in Time, and I was sat on the plane at this point, I was like, I need to put something on that's like gonna bring me back to like a mellow mood. So I put on Juror 2, which stars Nicholas Hoult. He is the only reason I put this film on, I'll just be honest with you. I love Nicholas Hoult. I think he's incredible. And yeah, he's the only reason I clicked on this movie. It's about his character, Justin, who finds himself on the jury for this very high-profile murder case, and he starts to piece together the crime and realizes that he's in a major, major dilemma because he thinks he might be involved with the crime. It's a very simple film, very easy to follow, linear storyline, but it's again about the acting, and the writing of this story is very interesting. The way that everything developed and the way that he was able to piece together what was happening around him and how he desperately tried to avoid being caught or any consequence. I found the movie really interesting. Again, it's not necessarily what I'm going to go back to, but I'm able to appreciate how good this story was. Just a really good story, gritty story. If you like crime dramas, if you like a slow paced tension kind of thriller almost, this is definitely for you. And Nicholas Hoult is brilliant in it. Really subtle, really great acting. So good. 4 out of 5 stars. Loved it. Easy. Done. Next. So I watched Juror number 2 and then I watched Smile 2. Smile 2 came out in 2024 and it's a sequel to Smile, the original Smile horror movie. This movie is basically about a supernatural entity that takes over people and makes them kind of kill themselves in really horrific ways and then takes over their body to like pass on to the next person. It's kind of like It Follows, but with a creepy smile thing, you know? Everyone raved about this movie when it came out. Everyone was saying how scary it was. Everyone was saying how good it was. Everyone was raving about it. And I thought, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not first. And I'm a massive horror fan, huge horror fan. Watch every horror film. I watched the original Smile movie. I go to Halloween Horror Nights. I love horror, okay? This movie was so average. And I'm sorry to say it, but it was. And I don't know why people were bigging it up so much. I thought Naomi Scott in the title role was really strong. She was really good, really believable. Started to spiral like mentally. Her character's journey was so chaotic and so exhausting, and she did a really good job. But the film itself, I don't know if it's just the story. I don't find it scary. I don't find people smiling scary. I don't know. I don't mean to be annoying, but there's something about this movie I find really basic. It's just, I, it doesn't do anything for me. It was clever the way it was centered around a famous person. So Naomi Scott's character is a famous artist. So it was interesting to see how it manifested itself in massive crowds of people and things like that. It was an interesting take. It was okay. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, which I'm sure people will think is too low, but it just like was like fine. And another number 2 movie, okay, another sequel. I watched Moana 2. I am a massive Moana fan, a massive Disney fan, and I was looking forward to watching this. I love Moana. I love the character of her. She's brilliant, and I love Maui, and I love the songs. Everything about Moana 1 is perfect. And I'm almost irritated that they made a second one because we did not need this. We didn't need it. Okay. And like, I watched it really wanting to enjoy it. It was just the same as the first one. Basically, Moana is contacted by her ancestors again, and she sets sail again to go on a journey again. I'm sorry to be this person, but it's the same as the first one. As someone who is an avid consumer of Disney movies and loves Disney and visits the parks and consumes that, I find movies like this really annoying because they are just repeating the same stuff we've seen before and we don't need it. We're not asking for it. We don't need it. So I do get frustrated when Disney do this. And I sound like the movie was really bad. It wasn't. It was a lovely movie, lovely story, beautiful animation, like always. Disney always does well. I just I just felt like we didn't need this movie. It had all the same characters in it and it had the exact same skeleton of a plot. So I gave it 2 out of 5 stars just to be annoying. Can you tell I'm getting irritated? I hate it when Disney do this. We didn't need Moana 2. And they're going down this route where they're just remaking everything and they've been doing it for a while, but I don't appreciate the sticking a number 2 badge on the movie when it's basically the same as the first one. Like, no, it doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. Next, I watched Netflix's The Electric State, which came out this year. I basically watched it the day it came out, and it stars Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. I really like both of those actors, so it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, let's give this a go. I want to start by saying that the movie's budget was $320 million. I'm going to let that sit with you for a minute. $320 million for one movie. What? Also, so I don't even know where to start after saying that. This movie was directed by the Russo brothers, who brought us the Avengers movies, Avengers Endgame, some of the greatest superhero movies ever. So they just applied this ridiculous budget to this movie, thinking it was an Avengers movie. I think they got confused because this movie did not warrant that budget, and I don't understand why they did that. I can see where the money went. It went on Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt and a load of special effects. But was it necessary? No, it wasn't. Basically, the story of The Electric State is this wacky, dystopian, family, futuristic movie that sees a time where humans and robots cannot live in harmony. And there have been wars and mass destructions against humans and robots, and now it is illegal to harbor a robot. The story was there, the concept was there was so much to work with, and the movie was just like a bit basic. And I found that the story had loads of moments which were like, ooh, this could get good, ooh, this could get good. And then by the end, it was just a really boring, basic ending. And I was really disappointed with it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars though, because I think watching it, I really liked the visual effects. The film was good. The film was good. It was okay. It wasn't $300 million budget worthy, but it was okay. I'm a subscriber to Mubi, the online platform. They have a load of movies on there. I end up stumbling across films that I never would have watched without the platform. So I watch a load of short films on there. And in March, I watched a handful of short films. I watched Muse that came out in 2024. I watched Lemon Tree that came out in 2023. I watched Beauty is Not a Sin that came out in 2024. And I watched Dreamwork that came out in 2001. Each of these short films was really interesting. I feel like I should maybe do a short film thing over on Instagram so people can read reviews of the short films. I find short films really interesting. Sometimes they're better than others. I particularly, out of the ones I just named, Muse was my favorite. That one was really cool. It was like a high fashion kind of thriller almost, all shot in black and white. But yeah, short films just make me happy because it inspires me. And it still amazes me how people are able to fit so much into such a small runtime. So yeah, I highly recommend watching short films. If you love movies and it's something you want to learn more about, or the industry you want to get into, short films are the way to go, the way to start. Whether you're making them or watching them, they're a really good way to just harness your skills and your knowledge. So those were some of the short films I watched. The next movie I watched was called Witches. This was again on Mubi, but it was a documentary, and it blew me away. It was made by Elizabeth Sankey, who is a British filmmaker, and essentially this documentary is her account and other women's accounts of pregnancy, motherhood, uh, postnatal depression, and what comes with going through pregnancy. Now, I know this film won't resonate with everyone, but for me personally, I found it to be profoundly interesting and eye opening. And I really appreciated the women being so open and honest about the experiences that they'd had. And the way that she shot it through the lens of witches and witches within media and cinema and things like that. I thought it was really interesting. She was like comparing women to being witches, comparing women to being these kind of magical beings who are capable of so much, and yet people just don't understand them. And this idea of what would have happened to me if I lived back then, going through everything that I've gone through, would they have thought I was a witch? I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Expanding on the motherhood theme I've got going here, I watched All About My Mother. I've seen the cinematography of this film everywhere. Being on Film Probe and doing design, I see this movie a lot. I know that Pedro Almodovar loves color, and his color palettes are so strong. And I was really excited to watch this film because I had never seen it before, and I'm a fan of his work. I love his vision. This film was, you guessed it, beautifully heartbreaking. It's a story of motherhood. Basically, we follow the story of this woman who loses her son in a very tragic way. It was really gritty. It was really dark at moments, and there were some really sad moments to this film. But it also had so much humor to it. It was this beautiful balance of how sad life can be, but it's what you make of it. Life will throw these horrible things at you, and how do you work through them? How do you as a person move forward through these situations? And visually, like I said, it was really gorgeous. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Loved it. The next movie I watched was called Opus, and this was a movie I was so looking forward to. Like, really looking forward to. It's a movie about cults and isolated communities and like weird people and music, and it just had all these themes that were just speaking to me, and it just meh. Opus stars Ayo Adibri, who I love. I think she's amazing. You might know her from The Bear. She's been in loads of stuff recently. She's very much an up and coming actress, and she's one to watch. I love her. She's so charismatic on screen. She's so funny. She's so natural. So I was expecting big things from this movie. I kind of described it as living in the shadow of Ari Aster's Midsummer. For anyone who hasn't seen that, it's another cult based movie, but that is like the top tier of movies. When you want to watch a cult movie, you watch Midsummer and then everything else is below it. And Opus is definitely living in the shadow of Midsummer. I thought, oh, could it compete? No, it cannot compete. And Ayo Debris is like not to blame. I don't blame her. Okay, she did a great job, and so did John Malkovich. The cast were all brilliant. There was something missing in the script, and there was something missing in the execution of this, where it just was a lot of nothing for a really long time, and then it escalated incredibly quickly at the end. But it was still lackluster, and it wasn't a satisfactory end. It just like was like, what? Really? That's the end? Overall, I thought Opus was mildly thrilling, mildly entertaining. The music, though, top notch. Genuinely enjoyed the music. I have actually been listening to the soundtrack. Don't judge me, I thought it was good. Started really strong and it was really interesting, and I was so engaged in the story. But then I found about halfway through it just started to dip, like get progressively worse. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars total, so it wasn't as bad as I was making out like it was. It was a middle of the ground movie. A lot of people hated it a lot more than I did, but it clawed its way back to 3 stars from 2 stars with Ao's performance, John Malkovich's performance, the music, and also the beginning of the film like enticed me. Like I was engrossed into it. It just lost me in the middle. So I don't know. So this next film is called I Am Not a Witch, and it came out in 2017. And I discovered this film because it was directed by a half Welsh, half Zambian film director. And I'm Welsh, so I discovered it through that way. And I thought it was really interesting. This movie, I say interesting, it was a tale of complete and utter helplessness, but also fear in so many forms. And it's centered around this young girl called Shula, and she is exiled from her community because they presume or think that she's a witch. A lot of witch theme this month, a lot of motherhood theme this month, a lot of sadness this month. Oh my goodness, March is intense. But I found this movie to be a commentary on fear, community, isolation, a load of quite heavy themes. It was a sad watch. It was very interesting and eye-opening. It was tough to watch. It was heavy to watch. It was emotionally draining to watch. It was hard to watch a young girl put in such an isolating position through the film. But it was, yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And the last film I watched in March 2025 was Revenge, which came out in 2017, and it was directed by the same woman who directed The Substance. If you don't know The Substance, where have you been? The Substance was like the best film that came out last year, but I've spoken about The Substance before. I feel like I always find a way of bringing up The Substance. Same director, so if you've seen The Substance, you'll understand what kind of themes Coralie likes to put in her film. She loves body horror, she loves intense gore, she loves female led stories and empowerment and revenge. And this movie, hence the title, Revenge, is a pure revenge story. It is brutal. It is thrilling. It is quite grotesque at times, but oh, it was so entertaining. It's about a young woman called Jen who's staying with her boyfriend in kind of a remote holiday home, and his friends turn up, and Jen is kind of taken advantage of by one of the men. And then in the morning, they try to kill her. So it takes a turn. But Jen does not die, and Jen seeks revenge. And Jen is a badass. The film made me like squirm at times. It was really quite disturbing. And like I said, the director loves body horror. She loves gore. She loves making you squirm. So if you're not somebody, if you don't have a strong stomach, this film might not be for you. If you like The Substance, you have to watch this. It's so, so good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. A brilliant way to end the month. I thought I'd change over the Jellycat to differentiate between my film log and my TV log. So the coffee bean represents the TV. So now I'm going to talk about what TV I watched in March, just to make it really simple for you. So I started the month watching the same show that everyone else watched in March, which was Adolescence, the incredible British TV show that was on Netflix. And wow, yeah, I get it. People were blown away by this show. It was filmed, each episode was filmed in one continuous shot. Hard to believe, but yes, it was. And when I was saying earlier about how much I love a POV shot, I love a continuous shot. One of my favorite movies of all time is Rope, Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, and that is kind of done as though it's one continuous shot, although it isn't. It's a pretty incredible marvel for the production crew and the cast to have done this. Is such a perfect example of British television. Really strong, really suspenseful, really thrilling, strong acting performances from all the cast. To go from beginning to end of an hour-long episode in one continuous shot and hit all your lines and hit all of those emotional moments is really, really amazing. And I found the show to be very powerful. Another show that I watched in March, which again is the show that everyone's talking about, is Severance. I don't even know how to start describing Severance. I've been trying to write a review of season 1 and season 2 since I watched it, and I find it so difficult to articulate my thoughts on this show because it's so intensely intelligent and confusing. And it's a genius story, and there's so much to unpack, both visually and and yeah, metaphorically, like there's just so much going on. But the show, surface level, if you don't want to get deeper into the show, if you just want to watch it for surface level face value, it's very entertaining, very interesting. The concept of the innies and outies, so you go to work and you forget who you are on the outside and you become a new version of yourself when you're inside work, and then when you leave, vice versa, you forget what you've done in work and you become yourself again. So it's a very interesting concept. I could dive into the pit of conspiracy and theory with Severance, and I won't bore you because I think I get it, but maybe I don't get it. I just think I get it. I don't know. And of course, I wanted to finish on The White Lotus season 3. If you haven't seen it yet, what have you been doing? I'm a very big fan of White Lotus. I think all 3 seasons have been super, super strong. I love Mike White. I think he's a legend. Just combines all these things I love about TV, which is visually appealing to watch, enticing, gripping character arcs, but also a thrilling crime drama at the center of it all. Like, it's like a whodunit, but better. 5 out of 5. I did actually give it 5 out of 5. And I gave the season before 5 out of 5. And I gave season 1 5 out of 5. So I'm very much a White Lotus fan. And I'm not ashamed of it. This has been my very long, very detailed account of everything I watched in March 2025. Thank you so much for watching. I love making these videos. I love being Film Probe. And I love watching movies and TV. So I'll keep doing it if you keep watching.